Good morning, everybody. We are here this morning with Reverend Lynn Snow and Don Howell, and we're going to be talking about the 11th, I can't believe it, annual Youth Chaplain Walk-A-Thon to support our Harwich youth. Let's go to Don, and why don't you tell us a little bit about this? You've been at it from the beginning, haven't you?
Yeah, actually, the beginning of the program, that was 15 years ago. As you know, it's for the Youth Chaplain Program, which is a somewhat different thing, and Lynn will talk about it, to help kids. It's more of a mentoring, ongoing program, shown to be very successful. One of the reasons we do this is because the program itself is funded entirely by the community. It has been since the onset. Because of that, we have certain pivotal events that we hold, and the Walk-A-Thon is the one that's been the longest running. Let me go back a little bit. It's more important this year than it ever has been. There have been articles, not just in the Cape Cod Times, but in the New York Times recently about drug addiction and what it's causing with kids. Our own chief basically believes that a huge percentage of crime in Harwich is directly related to that, and I'm sure you've seen articles in the newspaper about kids ODing, kids selling pills. Lynn's program is really important because they found statistically that this is the kind of program that reduces that kind of activity, because it's more than just psychological therapy. It's having somebody there when you need them, no matter when it is. And that's kind of what this grew out of. It's basically the walk into the dark. It's kind of a metaphor for what kids go through when they're in their teen years. It's going to happen on September 16th. There's a service that'll kick it off at Brooks Park at 4 o'clock, and the actual event will begin at 5 o'clock. It's scheduled from 5 to 12, but as some of you folks out there know, that we get special guest appearances at about 1 or 2 o'clock.
Chief Mason.
Chief Mason always comes out at 1. He and I always manage to get rained on every year. And there are a couple of other people who want to be anonymous who also come out around 1 or 2 o'clock, and we stay there for them. And they're there for the kids, and the whole point is that you're willing to do this, and you don't have to be there necessarily to help out. Last year, a couple of ministers, actually, one of them had to go on a retreat. She got sponsored and wound up walking off-site, for a couple of hours in support of the kids.
At the retreat.
At the retreat. But it's extremely important to us because it really, the funding model for this is, you don't obviously charge the kids for any of this. So the funding model is it comes from the community. About 60% of it now comes from the 7 major churches in Harwich, but the rest of it comes through fundraisers, and this is the biggest.
I remember when you first came on the scene here, we did interview you. How long ago was that when you took this job?
Wow. September 1st, 1999.
Wow.
And I remember my first day, which was great and very welcoming. Right from
and
the
how's
start.
it going?
It's good. Things have changed a little bit, but not a lot. The situations with the kids are pretty similar, with drugs and depression and sometimes an eating disorder, sometimes abusive relationships, sometimes absentee parents, emotionally and physically. I help kids. Not only do I just do support and counseling, I do kind of full service stuff. There was several kids, but one in particular. I met her 10 years ago when she was at the middle school and counseled her throughout the years through middle school and high school. And she used to bring her friends to me that were depressed and stuff. But I ended up doing her wedding and was it her baptism, her child's baptism?
Yep.
So I always say, you don't just get an hour of counseling.
And say goodbye.
Yeah, and I had a child that didn't want to go home for a couple of days. She wanted to run away. So I don't usually do this, but I knew the family and I knew her very well. So I said, come to my house. And she came and stayed with me for a couple of days, and I drove her to school, and she was great with my dogs. So that's all it takes, be good to my dogs. But it is an ongoing ministry, and the fundraisers are really helpful. The town helps us too. And Ken Badger, who's a well-known jazz musician, did a fundraiser concert for us in July, which was,
Hey,
and he did it last year too. Yeah, and it was so wonderful for all of us. So.
So you're really on the horn for all the time, aren't you?
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah,
on
really.
call 24/7.
Yeah.
And I have kids that stay in touch with me that are, I can't believe when they tell me they're 25 years old. You know, they call me and they tell me, they check in with me. One just called me, and I've known her for years. She graduated from high school a couple years ago. She's back in town. She wants to see me. So, and the door is always open for the kids and their families. There's one young girl, I counsel her mom too, and she didn't have anything to do for the summer. So kind of depressed, quiet little girl. So I talked to my veterinarian. This girl wants to be a vet someday. So Dr. Allison Neese said, well, let her come down, bring her down. She ended up volunteering there all summer. And I stopped by the other day, and Dr. Neese said, oh yeah, she assisted in surgery. She was there helping me kind of, you know, she didn't do operations and stuff.
No.
But I said, oh, wow, I wouldn't even want to be in there, you know, imagine.
And this really is important, more than one can imagine. It is one kid at a time. If everything boiled down to just throwing a few activities up and opening up some big rooms for kids to come, then none of the kids who grew up in small towns in the Midwest 100 years ago would have turned out right. It's not about dealing with kids in large events. It's about trying to make sure that the disaffected ones have some place to go and they know that they can always talk to that person.
Yeah, that's a wonderful thing. Now tell me how this works. How do you raise funds with this?
Well, people obviously walk, and they get sponsorships for them walking around, and it is around just the track, not the track itself, the White House Field, from 5 to midnight. And if you get a sponsor sheet, and we have those available at the community center, then you can get people to sign up to sponsor you for walking. And basically, that's the model. You don't have to even walk there, as I said. It's more about making sure that you take some time out that day to focus on the kids in Harwich and what they're going through. And if you can't do anything other than just support somebody walking, that would be fine. Mm-hmm. And again, even if you can't walk, try to take some time out to contemplate what kids are going through. Metaphorically, as I said, going into the dark is somewhat like a kid coming home at 5 o'clock in December to a dark house where there's nobody home and there's nobody there for them.
People actually come to the walk-a-thon, and you don't have to sign up ahead of time. You can just show up, and we'd be glad to take your check.
And you don't have to be fit. I can prove that.
Yeah.
So show up with the check. Now, let's see, the date is September.
Friday, September 16th. At 4 o'clock, there's a service.
Okay.
And 5 o'clock at White House Field, we'll be starting to walk around in little circles.
Okay. And come with your check?
One would hope.
That
Smile on your
didn't sound
face.
very nice, did
Huh?
it?
No, yeah.
I should take an offering. That's more church-like.
Come with your offering.
Yes.
And a check.
Speaking as a
Please.
treasurer,
Yeah,
that would be
please.
very nice.
And you know, we even accept cash.
Yeah, what's that?
So don't forget, September 16th, 4 p.m., and it's going to be over at the White House Field.
Starting at the service at the
That's the service at 4
Gazebo.
o'clock.
At the gazebo, and then we walk over to the field.
Okay. Oh, the service is at the gazebo at Brooks Park. Okay, and then walk over to the field, and that's where the walking takes place, and that's where the donations are collected, and everybody should get out there because it's a heck of a good cause, and we have a good leader here.
And we
Thanks.
certainly
She's
appreciate
been-
the support of
Huh?
the community for all these years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Don't forget, let's go, get out and bring your checks. Mics are hot.